10 reasons marriages don't explode. Most people imagine a marriage ending with a dramatic scene, slammed doors, a tearful confession, someone's bags packed on the porch. But the truth? Most marriages don't go out with a bang. They go out like a candle, slowly, quietly, in the dark, while both people are looking the other way. Today we're talking about the slow fade, the 10 invisible forces that chip away at a marriage, sometimes over years, until one day you look at the person across the breakfast table and realize you've become polite strangers who share a mortgage. This isn't about blame, it's about patterns, the ones that sneak up on even the most loving couples. Let's get into it. Reason 1. They stopped being curious about each other. When you first fell in love, you probably asked questions. You wanted to know everything. Their childhood fears, their weird food opinions, what they think about at 2 a.m. And somewhere along the way, you stopped asking. Not because you stopped caring, but because you assumed you already knew the answers. Here's the uncomfortable truth. People change. Constantly. The person you married 5, 10, 20 years ago has grown, shifted, picked up new fears, shed old ones. And when couples stop being genuinely curious about each other's inner world, they start relating to an old version of their partner, a ghost. They're not having a relationship. They're maintaining a habit. The couples who last, they keep asking. They stay interested. They treat their partner like someone worth discovering over and over again. Reason 2, the scoreboard. They started keeping score. It starts innocently enough. I did the dishes last 3 times. I was the one who planned the last vacation. I'm always the one who apologizes first. At some point, love turned into accounting. Every act of kindness has a price tag. Every sacrifice gets mentally filed under, "You owe me." The scoreboard is toxic not because fairness is wrong, fairness matters, but because love isn't meant to be transactional. The moment marriage becomes a ledger of who gave more and who took more, both people lose. You can't feel loved by someone who's constantly calculating whether you've earned it. And here's the cruelest part. When one person feels like they're always giving and the other feels like they're always being judged for not giving enough, both people feel lonely. 2 people, 1 relationship, both of them exhausted. Reason 3, the unsaid things. They let resentment build, one unspoken word at a time. Most couples don't have blowout fights about the big things. They have 1,000 tiny moments where one person bites their tongue and says nothing. I'm not going to make this a whole thing. It's not worth the argument. They'll just get defensive anyway. And so the thing stays unsaid. It joins all the other unsaid things. And over months, over years, those unsaid things stack up like sediment, hardening into a thick layer of resentment that sits just below every normal conversation. The danger isn't the conflict. The danger is the silence that replaces it. Because one day that silence becomes the relationship. 2 people going through the motions, careful not to say anything real, and both wondering why they feel so disconnected. Speaking up, kindly, clearly, without the intention to wound, is one of the bravest things a married person can do. Reason 4, the priority shuffle. They put everything else first and called it love. Work, kids, family obligations, friends, that project that's almost done, the gym, the group chat, the show they're watching separately on their own devices in the same room. Life gets full. That's real. But here's what a lot of couples quietly do. They start treating the marriage like it can handle being last in line because it's stable, because it's home, because surely your partner understands. And they might, for a while. But stable doesn't mean invincible. The marriage can handle being deprioritized until it can't. What's insidious about this is that nobody makes a decision to neglect the relationship. It happens in 100 small scheduling choices. It happens because everything else has a deadline and a person waiting, while the marriage just quietly waits. The couples who survive the busy seasons are the ones who treat time together as non-negotiable, not romantic, not elaborate, just consistent. Reason 5. The contempt creep. They stop seeing each other with kindness. Researcher John Gottman has spent decades studying what makes marriages work, and he calls contempt the single biggest predictor of divorce. Not conflict, not distance, contempt. Contempt is when frustration hardens into something colder. It's the eye roll, the dismissive laugh, the way you talk about your partner to your friends, not to vent, but to diminish. It's the tone that says, I am above you. I have stopped respecting you. The scariest thing about contempt is that it usually starts as justifiable irritation. They did something annoying. They didn't do something they promised. But over time, if that irritation isn't addressed, it stops being about the behavior and starts being about the person. You go from, you did something that frustrated me to, you are someone who frustrates me. And once you see your partner through that lens, once you've mentally demoted them, almost everything they do will seem like more evidence. Contempt is love's cancer, and it requires active work to stop. Reason 6. The intimacy drought. They let the physical and emotional closeness quietly dry up. And no, this isn't just about sex, though that matters too. This is about all the small forms of closeness that hold a marriage together. The touch on the shoulder when you pass in the kitchen, the lingering hug before one of you leaves, the eye contact that lasts a second longer than it needs to, the inside joke that only you two understand, the moment before sleep where you say something real. These moments are like water. You don't notice them going missing until you're parched. Intimacy drought usually starts gradually. Life gets busy. You're tired. You stop reaching for each other. And the more the distance grows, the more reaching across it feels awkward. Like trying to hug someone you haven't spoken to in months. What couples often miss is that physical and emotional intimacy are a system. When the emotional closeness fades, physical intimacy feels hollow. When physical touch disappears, emotional conversations feel guarded. They feed each other, and they starve each other. The fix is almost embarrassingly simple. Reach out, literally, consistently. Reason 7. The parallel lives problem. They built full lives that happen to share an address. She has her friends, her career, her routines. He has his hobbies, his world, his plans. They're both thriving, independently. From the outside, this looks like a healthy, modern couple. Two complete people who don't need each other to function. But there's a difference between being individuals and being strangers who are legally bound. If every dream, every exciting development, every hard day gets processed somewhere else, with someone else, before it ever gets shared with your partner, the marriage is getting the leftovers of your life. Shared life doesn't mean identical life, but it does mean some life is built together. Shared goals, shared rituals, shared friends you both genuinely know. Something that belongs to the marriage itself, not just to each person in it. When a couple has nothing that belongs to them as a unit, no story they're writing together, the relationship quietly becomes a logistical arrangement. Reason 8. The stagnant story. They forgot that marriage is a living story and let it go static. Every relationship has a narrative. How you met, what you've been through, where you're going. The inside mythology of two people building a life. Couples who thrive keep that story alive and forward moving. They talk about dreams. They make plans that are genuinely exciting. They celebrate things together. They have a sense of, we're on our way somewhere. Couples who stagnate stop updating the story. They know the history, but there's no chapter being written right now, no horizon they're heading toward. The marriage becomes a beautiful old photograph, meaningful, but still. There's a reason why couples who survive a challenge, buying a house, moving abroad, surviving a loss, starting something new, often report feeling more connected afterward. It's not the hardship, it's the shared momentum, the feeling of we are doing something. Ask yourself, what are we doing together right now that we'll both look back on? Reason 9, the assumption trap. They stopped communicating because they assumed they didn't need to. I know what they're going to say. They know how I feel. We don't need to talk about this. We've been together 15 years. Familiarity is one of marriage's greatest gifts. It's also one of its most reliable traps. Assuming you know what your partner needs, wants, feels, or thinks, without checking, is how well-meaning couples consistently miss each other. You think you're being considerate. You're actually being a mind reader who's guessing wrong and never finding out. The couples who communicate well long-term aren't doing so because they figured everything out. They communicate because they know they haven't. They stay curious. They check in. They say the obvious things out loud. They resist the arrogance of familiarity. It sounds counterintuitive, but one of the most loving things you can do for a long-term partner is to not assume, to ask, to listen as if you might learn something new, because you will. Reason 10, the forgetting. They forgot why they chose each other in the first place. This one is the quietest, the most human. When a marriage is new, the choice feels electric. This person, out of all of them, this one. You feel the weight and the wonder of it. But years pass. Routines settle in. The exciting becomes ordinary. The ordinary becomes invisible. And slowly, without any dramatic moment, without anyone deciding anything, the choosing stops being something you feel. Long-lasting marriages are not made of people who always feel the feeling. They're made of people who return to the decision, even when the feeling is quiet, who look at the person across from them and consciously think, I choose this. Not because it's easy or exciting right now, because of who they are, because of what we've built, because I still believe in us. That practice of remembering, of choosing again, deliberately, is what separates couples who drift apart from couples who grow together. It's not romantic. It's better than romantic. It's intentional. So there they are, 10 reasons marriages fade slowly. The drift, the scoreboard, the unsaid things, the priority shuffle, the contempt creep, the intimacy drought, the parallel lives, the stagnant story, the assumption trap, and the forgetting. None of them are dramatic. None of them are insurmountable. Most of them are things you can start working on today, not with a grand gesture, but with a question asked, a hand held, a thing said out loud that you've been carrying quietly. Marriages don't fail because two people stop loving each other. They fail because two people stop tending to each other and called it surviving. The good news? Every single one of these things is reversible. The story isn't over until both people stop writing it. If something in this resonated, share it with someone who might need to hear it. And if you're in the middle of some of these right now, just remember, awareness is where change begins. Take care of each other.